In the month of August, Kenya saw a string of killings in different parts of the country, mainly the coastal region, the Tana Delta, and the northeastern parts of the country. Further still, the Kenyans for Peace with Truth and Justice is calling for the extension of the term for the task force set by the Deputy Public Prosecutor's Office to investigate not only the death of Rogo, but the disappearance of innocent Kenyans dating back as early as February this year.
In February, Muslims for Human Rights and the Muslim Human Rights Forum informed us of the disappearance of Goy Kayembe and Shani Lydia. In March this year, Samir Khan was removed from a bus, and Mohammed Kasim. In both those instances, and Mr. Samir Khan's mutilated body was found later in Tsavo National Park. In both the instances, in the disappearance of Goy Kayembe and Shani, as well as Lydia, as well as Samir Khan and Mohammed Kasim has still not been found. In May this year, Musa Osodo and Jacob Mateka disappeared from Molo. In June this year, Stephen Osaka and Jeremiah Okumu also disappeared. Now, aside from the last instance, all those were disappeared by persons who claimed to be police officers. The last instance, the people who picked them up were in civilian clothing. So if you look at these people, it's very worrying. I mean, what's happening?
The chair of the Kenya Human Rights Commission, Atsango Chesoni, further called on the government agencies to uphold the rule of law, stating that it was the root of the moral decay and rampant disregard of the law by the youth of this country whenever they feel that their matters are not adequately addressed.
However, we would also like to note that this destruction of property and the Christian places of worship is actually a manifestation of a failed governance system. In our belief, this is not because there is a religious conflict. We would like the government to take note that whilst we condemn the violent protests, the violent reaction in Mombasa is the direct result of the pressure that has been building due to failure by the state apparatus to uphold the rule of law. Secondly, that Kenyan youth are disenchanted and frustrated by a failed system of governance, the abuse of the judicial process, so they have no faith in it, through disappearances and murders, and rather than the following of legal justice mechanisms, and have therefore chosen to take matters into their own hands by attacking easy targets.
Let me now remind you of this statement intended to allay fears that might have cropped as a result of such wrong signals. The Prime Minister, on August the 27th, during the marking of the second anniversary of the promulgation of the new constitution, assured the country that in a week's time, the issue of Police Inspector General's appointment will be as good as settled.
You know, the names that went to Parliament have been rejected by Parliament, and we have already more or less submitted other fresh names. So we hope that the Police Service Commission is going to be constituted, or the names will go back to Parliament in the course of this week.
Well, that seemed not to be the case. And the government doesn't seem to be in a hurry to address the issue, even as it is evident that the two principals have already breached the 2-year deadline set by the Constitution regarding the appointment of the Inspector General.
Thirdly, that the failure and delay by the government to undertake security sector reforms, the appointment of the Inspector General and the Deputy Inspector General and the Police Commission is undermining key changes that could help to make sure that the security sector is more professional and more ready to ensure sustainable security in the country.
The question of the appointment of the Internal Security Minister notwithstanding.
It is extremely worrying that a country which has intervened in a conflict in another country, where the conflict is manifesting itself in the way that it has been in our neighbor, Somalia, and therefore is a war that is not happening somewhere remotely, but which has implications for homeland security, would spend the kind of period of time that we have without a Minister for Internal Security, and have its police command illegally in office. This is a sign of actually recklessness on behalf of Kenya's leadership. They are failing the people of this country.
All this now beckons the question as to who is in charge of protecting the country, not to mention the recent retirement of the administration police commandant from office to vie for a political seat, even as the state continues to be ensued in violence and disappearance of innocent Kenyans. Timothy Omondi, GBS News.